A lot of people these days who know absolutely nothing about other creatures, other animals, they think that we are so different from them, which is not true. Our basic behaviour is just like other creatures. So I've got some doggy stories to tell you. Experiences that I've had with dogs. Well, I was taking my little dog for a walk and down a high street, and we passed a shop window. And there was quite a strong looking dog in the window, sitting in the window. Must have been the owner's dog. And this dog didn't look at us as we passed by. But as we passed by, I got about, 5 feet down the road, and I quickly stopped and looked around. And sure enough, the dog was just looking like that, looking at both of us, thinking who we were, etc. But that dog behaved just like a human would. Normally, if we're interested in someone, we make out we didn't notice them. We just carry on looking, and then suddenly when they pass by, we have a quick look. And that's what happened. And also, the dog was embarrassed when I caught the dog looking at us and quickly looked away, just as a human would. Another time, I went to one of these big supermarkets in London, and I saw this quite large dog sitting outside. So I waited there, and I even got on the tannoy to tell someone, the owner, if he was there, that the dog was there outside, and could he please come to the desk? Well, no one came to the desk, and I hanged around for about half an hour with this dog outside, and eventually I took the dog home. I don't really like a big dog, not in a small home anyway, and I didn't have a garden. But the dog was well trained, because the dog would always wait for me to take him out to go for a toilet. But once I remember I came home and he had done a toilet just inside the door of the flat. And I realised, looking at the toilet, he had diarrhoea, so he couldn't stop himself, and he just got as close to the door as possible, even though he couldn't get out. He was desperate to get out for the toilet. Again, just like a human would be, I guess, in a similar situation. If he couldn't get to a toilet, had diarrhoea. This dog was so traumatized because the owner had left him outside a supermarket that every time I used to go to a supermarket with a dog, he used to whine and whine and whine when I used to tie him up outside the market. He thought that I was going to do the same as the previous owner. Ah, that's sweet, huh? And just a reminder, if you like my videos, please give me a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. Thank you. Anyway, that particular dog used to sleep on the couch when I'm not there. So when I came home, I didn't know how to teach dogs in those days, but you don't need to hit a dog at all. But this dog would be asleep on the couch, and I would, at the beginning, tell him, get off the couch, and I'd make out to be angry. I wasn't angry at all. And the dog would get off the couch and then settle on the floor. But eventually, that didn't work, so I decided to give a quick whack to its bum and say, get off the couch, and the dog would. Well, I came home one day after doing a few whacks, so the dog knew that it wasn't supposed to be on the couch. I came home one day and the dog's sleeping on the floor. But I touched the couch to see if it was warm, and sure enough, it was warm. The dog had heard me coming through that door and quickly jumped on the floor and made out it was asleep. And now, come on, that's just what a human would do. Anyway, I gave up trying to explain to the dog that he couldn't sleep on the couch, and I used to get the cushions and put it on the top here so the dog couldn't sleep on the couch anymore when I wasn't in. The reason why, the dogs, big dogs especially, they get quite dirty when they go out, and their hairs get all over the couch as well. I remember my small dog, who I've talked about in the previous dog video, Chinese Crested. I used to put a lead on her, a harness, and then she would travel in the basket of my bicycle, the shopping basket. But for some reason, she used to try and jump out even when we're going along, which was ridiculous. And thank goodness that lead was on her, that harness, because she'd be hanging there. And I had to stop the bike quickly to grab her and put her back in again. I remember one day, I was going along with my girlfriend. She was behind me on the bike and we was going quite fast, I think. And for some reason, I can't remember what it was, but I had to suddenly put the brake on. I only had the front brake for some reason. I put the front brake on and the bike come to a sudden stop, and the back of the bike came up. And as it came up, my girlfriend, who was travelling too close to me, hit me right in the back and pushed it right up and over. So the bike was going over, and my poor little girl was, the dog, was in the basket, and I was afraid she was going to fall out of the basket and get crushed by me and the bike. So I just held my hands over the basket as we went over. Thank goodness there wasn't a lorry coming by or a fast car. I mean, we could have got some serious injuries there, and my dog could have died. And as far as I was concerned, and my girlfriend was concerned, our dog was our daughter. I mean, if we ended up all drowning, for instance, in a boat which capsized, we both would go to save the dog first. Because the dog is like a baby. You always talk about babies being small and innocent. Well, our dog was small and innocent. Our dog wasn't bigger than a baby, probably lighter in weight than a baby, a human baby. So yeah, and she was really innocent. I think what takes innocence away from people is money, isn't it? Greed, knowing that you can buy anything you want if you've got enough money. That's where innocence vanished. So innocence goes very quick, because kids know the value of money by the time they get to 3 or 4. Mum, buy me this, buy me that. Oh yeah, the big dog that I had, the one I found outside the supermarket, this dog obviously had bad eyesight, because when we used to meet another dog on the street, this dog would be okay with female dogs but hated male dogs no matter how big or small they were. So because of the bad eyesight, he would have to sniff their bum to see if there was male or female, and if he found it was male, he'd go berserk. I used to always have the dog on the lead. I should have put a muzzle on, actually, just in case those situations, because it did happen occasionally. I was a bit stupid in those days. Next time, if that happened again, I'd put a muzzle on. But there again, I've watched a lot of these, what do you call it, dog training things, especially with Caesar, that man called Caesar. I think I could train the dog to do anything, really. But dogs now are used a lot with people who have depression, who suffer from depression. They give them a dog. That's part of the therapy. So when they get depressed and they think about suicide or whatever they think about these people, they just have a dog on their lap, and they stroke the dog and they calm down. Sometimes it's the only thing that can calm them down is a dog, because they can feel the love coming from the dog, and the togetherness, the relaxation coming from that dog. So that's all part of the therapy today. I had a friend who had well, not a friend, he was an acquaintance of mine. He was living on the streets, and I don't know if you know it, but when people get kicked out onto the streets, they go to the council, and the council will not give them a flat if they got a place, if they got on it. Oh, actually, maybe I'm wrong there. No, I remember now. The housing charities that help people on the streets. People who get kicked out of their places because they have a dog, end up on the streets, the housing charity won't help them because of the dog. And quite often, a lot of council places won't rehouse them because of the dog. It's most unfair, because a dog to many people is part of the family, and that's why these people stayed on the streets, because they'd rather be on the streets with their loved one, but then have to separate and not know what horrors lie ahead for that loved one, that dog. Anyway, I met one fellow, and he told me, because I asked him one day, what's happened to your dog? Because they sleep with them on the streets, you see. And he said that he was staying at a friend's place who put him up for a few nights with the dog. And the dog was behind the couch. And suddenly the dog came around, came over to him and licked him on the cheek. Walked behind the couch, and he heard he thought it was a bit odd at the time that the dog just came around to lick him on the cheek. So he went and had a look behind the couch and found the dog had died. The dog knew that it was going to die and came to say goodbye, basically. We really have to stop hurting animals, you know. They really, because they behave as we do. There is no real difference, really. Don't say animals don't drive cars. My mum didn't drive a car. So what? That's all the basic things. They are the same as us, and they have the same internal organs, and they have fear and love, and they're very kind and thoughtful. I remember quite often we couldn't go to cafes. We couldn't even sit outside in some of these cafes. They refused to let us sit outside with the dog in the cafe. But in many countries, in Paris, for instance, France and Turkey, you can go inside with the dog. There's no problem. And in Turkey, I've seen dogs sitting on the table of a cafe. A small dog, of course, not a big dog. But, you know, some of the funniest moments for me with dogs was in Thailand. There was this dog. I tell you, when this dog was standing on its hind legs, it was probably up to my shoulders, 5 foot high, the head. And this fellow who owned the dog, Thai man, used to drive around on his scooter, so the dog could actually get his leg over the middle part of this scooter thing. Well, it's more like a moped or something, I don't know, and put his feet down on the platform, and then he would go off, and the dog would hold on to that. Well, not hold on, but he would put his paws on the handlebars, you see, and the fellow would go off with the dog in front of him, between him, on his motorcycle. So the dog was used to this. He knew straight away what to do. Anyway, I had a proper motorbike, a big motorbike at that. Even I had trouble cocking my leg over this big Yamaha. The dog didn't really understand that my Yamaha was different to his motorcycle, and he was coming over, putting his legs on the handlebars and trying to cock his leg over, which he couldn't, of course. And I had to push him away a few times. He couldn't understand that, though, because he loved me. He wanted to come with me, come for a ride. But you'll see in Thailand, many times you'll see dogs on the back of the motorbike or on the front of the motorbike, big and small. And I tell you, it's amazing some of the sights I've seen. I mean, can you imagine a small dog sitting on the back of the motorbike and managing to balance? Whew, scary, but a dog obviously does it all the time and got used to it.